the only way that you're going to make any positive change, it's going to be through finding a way to cut through all of the excuses that you have. Hello, welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about how you need to find a way, not an excuse, because there will always be so many excuses to not do something. Even as I was sitting down to make it, I was coming up with excuses as to why today is not the day to film this. So I've got the video planned out, it's ready to go. I'd put on a little bit of makeup, I felt confident to make the video, ready to make the video, but there was clearly a part of me that didn't want to because I found an excuse. And the excuse was, oh, there are people downstairs, so I don't want to be talking in my room. They might be able to hear what I'm saying. This is not a real excuse. Like, this is not a serious person. I'm like, really? You're gonna use that? And I sat with it for a while and I was like, fine, I'll make the video in half an hour. So you will see we are in a different place to where I normally film my videos because I was like, I'm gonna find a way, not an excuse. I had the excuse, the perfect excuse to not film this video, and that was, oh, you know, I'm worried someone might overhear. That is just an excuse. That's just like a manifestation of me feeling a bit uncomfortable or not ready to make the video, and it's just silly. So I found a way and I thought, what can I do instead? I've got another room I can film in and hopefully I'm not going to feel as self-conscious making this video, and I'm making it now. So I found a way, not an excuse. The example that I was originally going to talk about was one that maybe you'll be able to relate to. I'm always able to find an excuse to not clean. Now, don't get me wrong, I like having a clean space. I like walking into my room and I've made the bed and there's nothing on the floor and everything's in its place. Like, that's such a nice feeling and it's nice to be in that space. But when it comes to like dusting or hoovering, dusting I'm okay with, but hoovering, the amount of excuses, when I think about like the layers of excuses I'll have, so it'll be like, if it's downstairs, I'll be like, oh, well, you know, the hoover's downstairs, so I'll clean tomorrow. If it's upstairs, like on the landing, I'll still find an excuse, but it won't then just be like, oh, you know, it's heavy to carry upstairs. It will be like, oh, but you know, I'm a bit tired today, or well, it's 5 o'clock, so why don't I just hoover tomorrow instead? Like, these are not real reasons, and yet, because I'm looking for an excuse, I can just accept that and be like, oh yeah, yes, you can't hoover after 5 o'clock. So to find a way, not an excuse, I will then be like, I will view all of these reasons for not hoovering for what they are, which is just non-reasons, like silly things that I shouldn't even be considering. Like, these aren't barriers or hurdles at all. It's like, go downstairs and get the hoover. It's like an onion of excuses. You just peel back one and there's just so many other layers there of reasons to not act. But we need to find a way, not an excuse. The next thing I wanted to say was that it's normal to not be scared. That sounds so silly in the context of cleaning, but if you're thinking about a big project, even something like, for me, I have a few Ken Follett books that I want to read, his Century trilogy, but if you know Ken Follett, you will know all of his books are so long. I don't think I've read one that's under like 800 pages, which is great because you get a really in-depth view of the world, but it can be quite intimidating to start because you know that you're gonna be reading this book for, I don't know, at least 3 days. Like, I can read probably a paperback in a day if I really wanted, but there's no way I'm reading 800 pages in a day. It feels like a big commitment, I guess, or it just feels very intimidating. So it's normal to be like intimidated with something like that. And there are so many excuses if I don't want to read this book. I could say it's so long, it's going to take me too long, or I'm going to lose track of the characters, or I don't have enough time to like devote to this because if I leave it for too long and then come back, I'm going to have forgotten where I'm at. Like, so many reasons to not read this, but apply it to like bigger things as well, which I'm sure you can, whether it's like you're afraid to learn to drive or get a certain qualification so that you can change jobs or whatever. There will always be so many excuses, whether it's too expensive, which I guess that's a whole separate issue because sometimes it is, but anything to do with the time or like your relationship to it in terms of like, do you feel confident or do you feel ready? There will be so many reasons to not, like, if you take the driving example, you could be like, I don't have the time, I don't have a good recommendation of a good instructor, I don't have the confidence, like driving is very dangerous. There are so many things there. If you are looking for an excuse, you will always find one. But if you're committed to the end goal, like, oh, I want to learn how to drive, you'll get there. But in the process, it is going to feel uncomfortable. It's normal to be scared, normal to be intimidated if you're trying to make a big change. Anything outside of your comfort zone, anything that's a bit challenging or a bit different, like outside of the norm, outside of your comfort zone, it's going to be uncomfortable. But that's the only way that you're going to make any positive change, learn the new skill. It's going to be through finding a way to cut through all of the excuses that you have and being like, no, I'm committed to taking action. I'm committed to reading 50 pages a day to try and get through this book. I'm committed to spending the time, maybe a couple hours a week, learning how to drive or reading up on how I can move forward in my career or take this new exam or qualification that I need. Finding a way to do that, because there will be so many things that you could use as like justifications to not act. But it's like, do you want to stay where you are or do you want to move past your excuses? I did do a whole video about that aspect of it, the start where you are or stay where you are. I did a video on that, so I will link that for you. A thing that helps me is to be comfortable with uncertainty. And this is not something that, I guess with most things, it's not like you'll ever reach a point and be like, I'm good, I'm there now. Whether it's like, I'm always grateful or I'm always accepting of the things I cannot change. We're not going to reach a point where it's done. It's going to be like a daily thing, which you can view in a negative way and like, oh my gosh, you're telling me I have to be grateful every day. You're telling me I have to accept uncertainty every day. That's such hard work. That seems unfair. I don't want to do that. But equally, you could view that in a positive light, because you could be like, oh, I have an opportunity every day or even every moment. If I just step back and take a deep breath, I have an opportunity to move away from my ungrateful mindset or move away from this powerless mindset where I just feel overwhelmed by uncertainty. And I have an opportunity to change that and instead focus on what I am grateful for, or focus on the fact that uncertainty is certain. So I may as well try and accept it and lean into it. I think I might do a whole separate video about uncertainty, so I will save some more of my thoughts for that, because I have been dealing with a lot of that recently as I am a recent graduate. So a lot of uncertainty there. But if we're talking about excuses, I think that links nicely with the comfort zone idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Same way, get comfortable with uncertainty. Whatever you're trying to achieve or whatever you keep finding excuses for. And to be honest, in life in general, there's never going to be much certainty. So the sooner you can accept that, the better, I think. The next thing that I think is important to remember is that patience is a virtue. So we talked about how there can be so many excuses. Sometimes the excuses will come after you've started taking action. So say you want to be like, oh, I want to run 5K. You might think that the results aren't happening fast enough. You might think, oh, I have this goal and I've been maybe working at it for a few months. Maybe you're trying to write a book or you're trying to learn how to drive, and you keep facing setbacks that you didn't necessarily expect at the beginning. Those things, even though you were brave enough to take action at the start, even in trying to reach that goal, you can come across things that will act as more excuses, like this isn't happening quickly enough, this isn't linear, which unfortunately not a lot of things are. 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing, where you're moving forward but you're also going back. So you're overall heading in the right direction, but there will be little setbacks happening. That's where patience comes in, because you just need to commit to what you want to achieve and then sit with the uncertainty, accept going out of your comfort zone, be patient as you take your action, hoping, knowing that if you keep going, it will eventually get you to the place where you want to get to. But you just have to be aware of it, because it would be so easy to be like, this isn't happening in the way that I expected, or it's not happening as quickly as I expected. You know, I thought I would pass this test, or I thought I would have finished this book by now. If we're taking the book example, that lack of acceptance on the journey to the thing can then become an excuse in itself to give up or to stop trying. Being aware that this thing that you're trying to achieve, this thing that you keep having excuses for, it's about being vigilant throughout and remaining patient and keeping going, trusting that you will get there. I would say as well, once you have taken action, once you are on this journey, once you try and get past all of your excuses, like my Hoover example of wanting to clean, once I have actually got past that and I've started cleaning, even if I don't move everything and do like a thorough clean, I can still then reward myself and be like, hey, you did something there. You didn't fall back into the excuses and be like, oh, well, there are all these reasons why I can't do this. I actually took the action. And so then I can reward myself for that and be like, well done. So for example, I mentioned at the beginning, filming this video, I had a few excuses as to why today wouldn't be the right time. But I said to myself that once I'd filmed the video, I mean, I'm now going to edit it, but once I've done that, I gave myself as a reward, I'm going to watch an episode of Law and Order. That gave me some motivation as well to sit down and film the video. That is something to bear in mind as well with the excuses. Once you have conquered some of your excuses, give yourself a little reward. Like, oh, I would normally try and do some admin or sorting out, but instead I'm gonna let myself read for half an hour, or I'm gonna go for a nice walk, or I'm gonna watch a favourite episode of TV. I hope I've given you some pointers, some things to think about in terms of excuses, because there are so many. But I've really been trying to identify these things, like I gave the example with the cleaning, with the uncertainty. Like, I've been really thinking about this a lot and trying to find a way, not an excuse, as something to help me get things done. So I hope that some of these things have helped you as well. I will leave my video 6 tips to be more motivated, because I did talk there about motivation, so I think that could be useful to you if you enjoyed this video. I will also leave my video start where you are or stay where you are, because I mentioned that, and I think that continues on with some of the same things that we've been talking about in this video. God bless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.